All right, welcome back. I've actually realized that I said at the beginning I was going to start videos off with like either questions or whatnot or something about myself, and I've been forgetting the last few times, so that's on me. That one's on me. However, I will start with two things now. First one is controversial, very controversial. Uh, it is for me something I hold near and dear, but a lot of people think I'm crazy for it because I think the Beatles are far and away one of the most overrated bands to ever exist. And I know, shocking, right? But that's just something I hold near and dear. I think everyone's crazy when they think they're like the greatest band in the world. I'm like, they're not. Y'all tripping. So that's just something that telling you a little about myself. Also, I'm going to send out. I'm either going to send it out or I'm going to post it on my website. But I've been obviously cooped up a lot, and I've been listening to loads of music. But I'm curious what y'all be listening to. So I'm going to send that out. You just send me either a song or a band, and I'll try and work through them. If you send me, if you're a country rap, whatever, just send it to me. Y'all know that I'm mostly pop punk and alternative and whatnot, but that's okay. You send me what you're interested in, that way I know. So anyway, without further ado, we are moving into like now Europe's at war. So we talked about the causes. You've gone through, hopefully, you've gone through yesterday, and you did a bunch of your like analysis. You read some of the verbiage that like all those leaders be talking about, and they're just going around saying like things about like their allies and whatnot. So I hope you read those. I believe it's four sources. um, but now we're actually like Europe's actually at war now. Um, so you have the Central Powers versus the Allies, and so this is like end of the war. So by the end of the war, you have Austria-Hungary, and you can kind of see it down here. You got Germany or like Prussia, and then you got Bulgaria, which is kind of random if you really think about it. Like no one be talking ever about Bulgaria, but they own the Central Powers, and of course the Ottoman Empire versus the Allies, which Russia, France, Great Britain, Japan. Again, kind of random. Italy, and then by the end of it, the good old U.S. of A. They got in really late to the party. Well, it's not really a party, but you know what I'm saying. They got in real late. Like I think I want to say 1917. I should have fact checked myself, but I believe like it's already going on for a real long time. Okay, so here's the Western Front, and obviously this little map here is not the best of maps, but pretty much a stalemate along the border, and um, this had a lot to do with how warfare is fought now. Um, the new technology, and we're gonna really get into the crux of it, but the new technology and the new strategies made it real hard to get lots of land quickly. Uh, it made it made for very prolonged trench warfare, and it made for really it was a real struggle to move. Okay, the Schliffen plan. I don't really know this one. I speak German, but I know this one. Here we go. Oh, so this was their plan to win the war. So they believed that if they could attack France first, knock them out like fight night, and get the W on them real quick, like that they would be able to focus on one front, right? Because we talked about Russia, France, and they have to fight two fronts. You have to fight two fronts. You have to split your forces. You have to split your supplies. You have to do all that. Whereas France only has one front and Russia only has one front, so it's really difficult, right? So Germany, they're like, how are we going to fight the war? That was a horrible. Well, that was a bad accent. Yeah, that was more French, wasn't it? Anyway, it was terrible. I'm sorry. I apologize for that horrible accent. I'm not even gonna try it again. But they thought to themselves, how are we going to do this? So if you knock off one of the fronts, you can focus on the other front. Makes it smart, right? It's a brilliant idea. And here's like kind of an easy way. So basically, they're going around them. They're like, hey, if they're here, if we just do this, we'll cut off their supply lines. We'll have them on. Well, now we'll have them on two fronts, and we can get it done real quick. Like, um, so again, let me keep up to date on this side of it. So the first battle of the Marne, Germany was on track, right? They were all aboard to beat France, and they almost made it to Paris. That was the key. They needed to make it to Paris. And unfortunately for the Germans, or fortunately for the French, it depends on what side you are. But they regrouped in the Valley of the Marne, and what happened was a bunch of like taxi cabs and cars, like basically were rushing soldiers to the front line. So French soldiers, they were like, "Let's get going," put them in their taxi cab. You know what was nice of them? They didn't charge them. Didn't charge them. They could have. That would have been a big fare. But they got them to the front, and with all that extra supply and personnel, they were able to rebuff Germany, or make them retreat. Okay, so yeah, there you go. It's kind of cool that now we have photos, like legitimate photos of this. So the effects, it destroys their plan, right? Russia's already, so they couldn't knock France out, so they still have those two fronts. Russia's already invaded Germany, or Prussia, right? And Germany was going to have to fight a war on two fronts after all, which sucks for them. Again, you have to split your forces, you have to split your resources, you have to worry about two different places to focus on. It doesn't make it easy for you. Okay, it's not the best. So then you have, again, so why is there a stalemate? Well, it's trench warfare, and I actually mean like a trench where you dig in and you reinforce it, and um, this is going to help you protect from fire, not like fire. We're not talking about like them fighting Prince Zuko or something in the Fire Nation. We're talking about like weapons of like what would it be, like machine guns and pistols and whatnot, and at this point like artillery and tanks. So you dig in so you don't get shot, and because you're dug in, you're able to make better defenses. So it makes it even more difficult to push you out, right? So that's why it's such a stalemate, because neither side could push the other side away to could gain land or gain significant amounts of land. Um, and these trenches sucked. Like they were not fun. It's not like when you were 5 years old playing in the dirt on the beach and the water's rushing in and you're having a good old time and everyone's like, you get to go and you get to have a soda or whatnot. No, no, no. This is not like that at all. Not even close. They are dirty. They are dank. They are water infested, rat infested, flea infested. It is disgusting. It's so bad. It's the worst. Okay. Um, you get this nasty thing called like trench foot, which like, oh god, this sucks. So you basically could lose limbs because of this, because it was so wet and causing so much like decay. And you're living with dead bodies and disease, and you're not getting enough food, and you're getting shot at, and then you have mustard gas, and it's it is the worst. Like I can't express to y'all this way like how awful it is, but if you can kind of see how your toes are turning black up here, right? And you're dealing with that, so you have to deal with 24/7 something sucks about what you're dealing with. Okay, it's not a pleasant. This again led to ridiculous amounts of life loss on both sides. It wasn't like one side was immune to this; like they were both dealing with this absolute rubbish. Okay, so why is that? But these are trenches. So again, latrine is your bathroom. So you can kind of see and again, like I hope this is not too like gruesome for you, but like dead bodies and you can see right here, I'm like trying to point like, oh look at this, but you can't see my fingers, but right here, so you can see how it's muddy and wet and disgusting, and you have sandbags and you have to there's no space here. So like it's if you pop up, you can get shot really easily. And even if you're trying to charge, you have to go over barbed wire and it's just the worst. Um, so some facts for you. There was easily 20,000 British soldiers alone there dealing with trench foot. What they would do is to try to like not have it be so horrible. You'd spend like a week in the front, like on the front. Then you'd spend a week. So it wasn't like one trench and that was it. There was like multiple trenches and it was all interconnected and you go all the way back. And that way it's easy to bring supplies in and out and not be up top, right? So you spend a week on the front, then you spend a week in support, and then you spend a week in reserve. Okay, so like reserve being like not even close to the front. Okay, and then you do that every 3 weeks. Um, and it is estimated that like a third of people that died in the World War One, or as they called it, the Great War, because they didn't have the foresight to know that there would be a second World War only like 20 years later. But a third of them had died in trenches. Most of the time, the daytime was the easiest, and I'm saying that very much like it sucked all the time, but it sucked least during the day because most of the time people didn't attack because again, human eyesight's better in the daytime than it is at night. At least from my personal experience, I can't see in the dark very well, uh, or in the light very well because I have bad eyesight. That's why I wear contacts. But there was more raids at night, more attacking at night. Um, Soldiers also didn't really have great water to drink. They contracted dysentery, and if I know y'all played Oregon Trail when you were young, so I know y'all understand dysentery. Dysentery is like when your intestines are all messed up, um, and you have to deal with not being able to go to the bathroom normally. To put that in, you don't have you get what they call the trots. So yeah, not good, and you can end up having bloody stool. I don't know how to put that into like pleasant terms, but it's not fun. You can die from it. Um, again, I told you, so like, why did they have a no man's land? Like, why were trenches far apart? Well, it's that all that new technology, all that artillery, all those tanks, and this is where you get that term shell shocks. This is where that term comes from because people in the trenches were getting bombed all the time, and that causes PTSD or post traumatic stress disorder and shell shock is what it was called, right? And this is where that comes from, okay? Because they were dealing with this every single day for weeks, on months, on years, okay? I'm trying to express to you how horrible this was. This was not even remotely fun. Like there's nothing, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is horrible. Okay, and we're not even talking yet. And I don't know if okay, so we will. Now we're talking about poison gas, mustard gas, chlorine gas. This stuff is just like you think barbed wire sucks. You think getting shot sucks. Like this is awful. We're talking about chemical warfare that is no longer being used. Like you cannot use it at all anymore because it's so horrible. It causes blindness, it causes choking, it causes your insides to basically boil and bubble. It kills you because you're having something so toxic and so awful being inhaled. And this was typical because the reason why you use this in World War One before they realized how before they stopped using it is it's heavy. It's heavy gas. So what happens was when you fire it, it would sink into the trenches. Okay? So they would fire it, it would sink into those trenches, and it would force them to be, and as you see here, wear gas. And if you didn't get your mask on quickly, you would die. Okay? So they use this. But again, one of the problems with gas is you can't control gas. It's not like you can like tell it to go somewhere. So if you fire it, right? If you go and you fire it, you hoping that the wind is in your favor. Because what happens if that wind blows back at you, which it did? Okay, so this stuff is terrible. Okay, you have machine guns, so this is like one of the defining features of this war, right? We didn't have machine guns up until this point, really. Okay, these caused probably the most deaths out of everything that we've talked about. Um, Barbed wire is now a new thing, preventing soldiers from going with ease from one side to the other. Right? You have to either cut it, jump it, figure it out, but it slows you down, makes it easier to get attacked by uh, machine guns and/or tanks. Right? Tanks are now able to cross more terrain. It's easier to cross terrain with tanks. They would break down a lot because they're new technology, but they're no longer. It's not like a car where a car can get stuck real easily. They have tread. It's a lot easier to go. Um, and now you have submarines, which is changing naval warfare forever. Okay, these are they're like U-boats if you're German, and these are changing it forever as well as your fighter planes. Those are now so now we have not just land, but naval warfare is changing, and now we have like an air force, aerial fighting's changing, dogfights up in the skies. This is this war is impactful for the like just the complete change into how it's fought. Um, so let's go Eastern Front. Okay, so that's Western Front. It's also happening on the east. So like it's not like I'm gonna say that was only the Western Front. It's happening on all the fronts. But uh, German versus Russian on the Eastern Front. Russia's having a little bit of struggles. And the reason why is they're short on food, guns, ammunition, supplies. They're short on a lot of things. Um, but the one thing that Russia is not short on is people. Okay, they have a massive population, and even though they're not extremely well equipped, because they have so many people, they're able to rebuff or like create a standstill against the Germans. Even though the Germans have they're better supplied, they're better trained for the most part. Um, Russians did not. It was a pretty much a standstill. Um, but they did suffer a ton of like a really massive death toll. Um, so let's see. I want to make sure I have it. Okay, so here's your timeline. Again, this is I'm not going to like ask you verbatim probably about this stuff, but I want you to have an idea of what's going on. So 1914 basically starts with the spark, Franz Ferdinand, stalemates on the Western Front, some battles that are relatively important, and then the U.S. enters. Yeah, okay, I was right. 1917. Look at that. Wicked smart. Wicked smart. Entered the war at the same time Russia withdraws, and this was kind of interesting. And they kind of withdrew because German. I might get into that later. I might make a little anecdote later on as to why, because I'm not sure if I'll add that later. But if you want to know that, let me know because it's really interesting what Germany did to knock Russia out of the war in a way. And then 18 war ends, and 1919 the Treaty of Versailles is signed. Versailles being, remember, King Louis the Sun King. So they signed it in Versailles, in the palace, in if I recall correctly. Again, I should have fact checked myself, but in the Hall of Mirrors, right? That whole thing, that super posh thing, that the super posh room that the Sun King made. So that's where it's at. So I'm gonna end with some memes. So Treaty of Versailles, they kind of blame Germany for it and really like hammer Germany, but anyway, I think these are funny. I hope you think they're funny too. Um, oh yeah, that's it. So that one's it. I wanted to express again. If you have any questions, any comments, any concerns, you got to let me know. I can't read y'all mind. I can't see you to ask you in person, so you have to let me know. And if there's anything y'all need, please let me know. Y'all wicked smart. You can do it. You can continue to knock these out. Again, you have a few weeks. Finish strong. Okay. Uh, with that,